Hello, my name is Nigel Wainwright. I'm a clinical psychologist. I work here at Mid Yorkshire Hospitals NHS Trust as part of the Occupational Health and Staff Wellbeing Service. I just want to talk in this brief video about some things that you might consider doing that might be helpful in the current time when you're dealing with COVID-19 and the emotional reaction that you might be having to COVID-19. One of the first things is to try and make sure that you take breaks that you're entitled to. Things can be quite extreme at work right now. Workloads can be heavy, the emotional burden can be heavy. It might be the case that the physical burden of what you're doing right now is very heavy. So making sure that you take your breaks will be really helpful. If you can get some physical distance away from where you're working as well, that will also be helpful. Trying to make sure that you take your days off. It might be the case that right now in the trust there's an abundance of extra shifts going, and because of financial struggles that have been brought around because of COVID-19, there might be a pull to take additional shifts on. While we recognise that might be a pull, I suppose that there's something important in terms of balancing that against your own physical and emotional needs, really. You will need time off right now. And in order to try not to get burnt out, try and make sure that you fuel yourself and fuel yourself well. Try and make sure that you're eating well. Eating a balanced diet, both at work and at home, can be really helpful. Making sure that you hydrate, making sure you drink plenty of water, again, at work and at home. And I know from talking to some members of staff that can be really difficult when you've got the prospect of having to doff a load of PPE, but do try and do that where you can. Make sure that you connect with your colleagues. Spend some time at break times just talking about fun, non-COVID, non-work related things, just general chit-chat. Just try and decompress when you're having those breaks and make connections with your colleagues around you. Make sure you thank each other. We're all in a really difficult situation right now. So make sure we're appreciating each other, taking the time out to let a colleague know that you appreciate what they've done, you appreciate any help that they've given you. Can be a really nice and helpful thing for you and for them too. As human beings, sometimes we can get caught up in what didn't go so well. There are really good reasons why our mind has that bias. And so sometimes it's helpful just to take stock of things that have gone well and press pause and just kind of think of a few things each day that have gone well, maybe on each shift that have gone well, and talk about that maybe to friends, maybe to family members, but also to your colleagues. Showing appreciation and gratitude, and just taking the time to reflect with colleagues what you might appreciate about your team, what's useful and helpful and potentially nurturing about your team, what you appreciate about each other, what you're grateful for. Try and stay updated with what's going on in your team, engage in any planning, take the time to listen to and/or read any communication briefs, just so that you've got as much information as is helpful for you to do your job. Maybe consider, if things have been difficult, having a bit of an opportunity at the end of shifts to just take stock, check in with each other, see how each other are doing, maybe just in an informal way, just maybe debriefing, recognizing that things have been difficult and anything that has been difficult on that particular shift. And then finally, just peer support, just making sure that you engage and support each other through this time. Have conversations. If you're struggling, maybe consider letting people know that you're struggling, that things are difficult right now. And see if another person might have some suggestions. Maybe consider ways that you might be able to help and suggest things to another person. Some of us are going to be working from home right now, working remotely, and that can be quite difficult. If you can, that you've got the right equipment to enable you to do your job, so you've not got that added frustration of your equipment not working properly or not being adequate for your purposes, really. But trying to find a quite dedicated area where you can do your work can be really helpful. It can be really helpful in terms of your productivity and helping you be able to say to yourself at the end of the day that you've done what you set out to do on that day. Your workstation where you're working might not be ideal, but doing what you can to make sure that you look after yourself, look after your back, look after your posture, and try and reduce any risk of musculoskeletal aches and pains and potentially injury. If you can, or if it's helpful, think about setting a timetable. Set a timetable for when you're going to start, specific times that you might have meetings via the internet or on telephones, and specific times that you might focus on particular tasks, just to sort of give some structure to your day. Consider setting yourself goals for what you might want to achieve, and maybe consider your day in terms of goals and in terms of things that you want to achieve rather than the amount of time that you're going to spend working. Make sure you move. Sit in one place for a long period of time isn't going to be good for your physical or your mental well-being, really. So try and get up, move around. If you can, step outside into your garden if you've got one, or into an area that's safe to do so, just to get some fresh air. And maybe think about mindfulness. If on an hourly basis you can pull yourself out of what you're doing, pull yourself out of any automatic pilot that's going on right now, and just check in with your five senses. Just notice what you can see, hear, touch, taste, smell, and just notice what's around you. Check in maybe with what your mind is giving you, what you're thinking about at any one time. You need to make sure as well that you try and keep connected with your colleagues. Working with this distance can be really tough. You might be really used to having that peer support, having that human connectivity, and you might be really missing that. So try in any way you can to link in with your colleagues where you can. Make sure you eat, scheduling meals, scheduling breaks, just making sure that you're fueling yourself and hydrating yourself. And maybe buddying up with somebody in your team, making sure that you're linking in with each other on a regular basis, just checking in with each other to make sure that you're doing okay. There's so much media about COVID-19. It's all the media report on at the moment. And with that, social media is similar. Lots and lots of chat on things like WhatsApp about COVID-19. And it's useful to think about getting a break from that, really, and getting a break from COVID-19 and COVID-19 related stuff. So consider having a news break, limit your access to the news. Make sure you're only accessing reliable sources of information. Maybe limiting the amount of social media exposure that you're giving yourself, because it can be a breeding ground for anxiety and rumours. Try and make sure that you exercise. To get outside and do some exercise can be really helpful in terms of releasing endorphins and giving you a sense of achievement, really. For eating well, make sure you're eating a balanced diet if you can, and putting decent fuel into your system. Maybe trying to avoid unhelpful strategies. So making sure you, obviously, goes without saying, avoiding things like drugs, but also avoiding things like drinking too much alcohol, or smoking too much, or even relying too much on caffeine. Maybe consider breathing exercises. So engaging in things perhaps like square breathing or soothing rhythm breathing can be a really helpful way of just calming or keeping our levels of anxiety down and helping them not escalate too much. If you have a look on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of breathing exercises, square breathing exercises and soothing rhythm breathing exercises you might want to have a look at. Connect, use technology to connect with people who are important to you, people that you would normally connect with in person, whether it's family members or friends. Maybe treat yourself. Things are difficult right now. It might be the case that you feel like you're working really hard and you can't do those nice little treats that you might normally do, like going for a nice coffee and a piece of cake. So treat yourself in other ways. Maybe take the time to do something nice for yourself. Could be having a nice relaxing hot bath, cooking yourself a really nice meal. And make sure that you try and build in activities that you find pleasurable, rewarding, and that give you a sense of mastery, that give you a sense of achievement. Making sure you take time for rest and relaxation. Do things that you find relaxing, that help unwind you. So controlled worry is where you would set aside a period of the day, maybe half an hour, and you would agree on the time, where maybe between 9 and 9:30, that's your controlled worry period. And during that time, you will allow yourself to worry, to think about the things that are concerning you, and to kind of go through that process of spinning that around in your mind. And once 9:30 comes around, you agree to press pause on that. And if a new worry comes up outside of the worry half hour, that maybe you agree with yourself that you will note that mentally, or maybe write it down, but you will postpone that worry until the next worry period the next day. Just have a go at that and see how that is. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you.